If you've been watching my channel for a while, you know that I'm a big fan of using a bicycle as my primary form of transportation. I've uploaded a few videos about the topic now, and one of the most common comments I get is, yeah, this is all well and good, but you have no idea how dangerous it is to cycle where I live. And I hear you on that point, because I've had exactly the same thought about where I live. So, how did I go from driving a car everywhere to cycling everywhere? And is it actually as dangerous as it seems, or are there ways we can find to cycle safely in an area designed entirely with cars in mind? I live in the inner ring of suburbs around Minneapolis, Minnesota. Now, Minneapolis was just named the best city for cycling in the USA for 2023. If you've ever had the privilege to cycle in Minneapolis, you'll understand why this is. There are countless miles of bike paths, separated from the road, a rapidly growing network of on-road cycle lanes, and a recently imposed 20-mile-an-hour speed limit, which most drivers actually follow, all of which are designed to help improve safety for cyclists and pedestrians. On any given weekend in the warmer months, you'll find the trails full of cyclists of all types. However, head a few miles south and you hit my city. My city has a fraction of the bike paths and lanes that Minneapolis has. In fact, in the past years, my city has had the highest accident rates of cars hitting cyclists and pedestrians of any suburb of Minneapolis. Both times I've been hit by cars happened in my city. So how is it that I've managed to cycle thousands of miles here and not get killed yet? When I was first thinking about using my Velomobile to commute and run errands, I approached it from the perspective of a car driver. I thought of the 4 to 6 lanes of traffic with 35 to 45 mile an hour speed limits, backed with giant SUVs. Not exactly a cycle-friendly environment. Just because that's the fastest route to someplace in a car doesn't mean that it's the fastest way to get there with a bike or a Velomobile. Take, for instance, grocery shopping. There's 15 or so grocery stores within a rideable distance of me. Now, my usual grocery store, the one that's the closest, is in the middle of this great big commercial area with a really busy parking lot. I don't even like driving my car here, and I definitely don't take my Velomobile here. However, there's another grocery store in a quieter area that's not that much farther away. Not only is the parking lot less busy, but I can get there using quiet side streets with maybe a handful of cars to deal with. And I found the same thing on my daily commute. In the beginning, I took the route that I'd take with my car. But by studying the maps, I was able to find an alternate route that not only had less traffic, but was also better paved and more scenic. Even destinations stuck right in the middle of a busy area, like my chiropractor's office, for instance, can be reached using back roads if you study the maps. And, as an added bonus, sometimes those back routes are actually faster because you're not spending time stuck at traffic lights. There are a variety of maps that list cycle routes in your area. For instance, Pocket Earth on iPhone, Komoot, Ride with GPS, Garmin Connect, Strava Maps, and Google Maps are all great places to search for cycle-friendly routes. A lot of these apps also allow you to navigate from them while you're riding, so if you have a new route, you're able to follow the GPS. And of course, you can also ask local cyclists, because oftentimes they know routes that nobody else knows even exist. Finally, I've learned which times of day have the lowest volume of traffic, and when possible, I choose those times to run my errands. If I'm riding during a busier time, I'll usually take the quieter streets. However, sometimes it's just not possible to find a cycle-friendly route. That's where having a Velomobile can be a real advantage. While a bicycle cruises maybe 14 to 18 miles an hour with a strong rider, a Velomobile like my Book can easily cruise 20 to 30 miles an hour. That means you're closer to the speed of traffic, and you might feel a little bit less like a sitting duck. Some Velomobile models can even be outfitted with e-assist to help you get up to cruising speed more quickly and zip up hills. Velomobiles also have the advantage of being the most fascinating object on the road. A 2.5 meter long brightly colored torpedo zipping down the road does have the tendency to get noticed. Throw on some bright flashing lights front and rear, and most drivers will definitely notice you. For the drivers too focused on their phones, there's always the horn, and trust me, it's effective. On the off chance that you do have the misfortune of getting hit by a car, the shell takes a lot of the hit and dissipates the energy of the crash, much like the body of a car. The cockpit edges act as a sort of seatbelt, keeping you from flying out of the bike and across the road. The head bump helps keep your head from hitting the pavement if you flip. There are dedicated crash zones, padded headrests, and so on. Now, for the times when you do find yourself riding on the road, the best advice I was ever given was to take the lane. This might seem counterintuitive, because wouldn't that make you a sitting duck? But no, not in my experience. I have a short multi-lane stretch of road that I have to ride across a major highway in my commute. At first I was riding all the way to the right, but drivers tended to think they had room to pass me without actually changing the lane. Now that I'm riding up in the middle of the road, I don't have that problem anymore, and it feels like drivers actually are more aware of my presence. I also can't emphasize enough the importance of really bright lights, particularly in a flash mode, which is legal here in the US. The hotspot available for most Velomobiles sold at Velomobile World is, in my opinion, indispensable. The higher up you position those lights, the better, in my opinion. I've also retrofitted a Phoenix T3 flasher in the rear. I think you would have to be almost blind not to see that light. Then, of course, there's the Garmin Varia radar, which will activate a flashing pattern depending on how close a driver is. It can also show you on a Garmin device when a driver is approaching from behind. Of course, I also run with headlights both up in the nose and in the hot spot. Having a headlight particularly up high also really aids with visibility in traffic. The final safety element that I have when riding is an incident camera system. I use that, one, so that there's a camera up there for drivers to see that might make them think twice about what they're doing on the road, but also in the event that I am in an incident, I have proof of what happened that I can send to an insurance company. And I've also used that footage in the past to contact the local cycle planning to say, hey, there's a hole here in your infrastructure that's putting cyclists at danger. Let's see what we can do to fix that. Sometimes city infrastructure planners are just not thinking the way we cyclists are thinking, and they're not always out there cycling at the time or in the way that we are. And sitting down with them and showing them footage of what it's like to be out there cycling can have a really positive influence on what they do with their planning. Now, there is one time when you're not going to be visible to larger vehicles like SUVs, and that's when you're directly next to or right in front of them, just because of their large size. Most of the time, they're going to have approached you probably from behind, and they're going to have some general idea of where you are, but it's always safest to just assume that they haven't seen you and to act accordingly. Busy parking lots and also streets with parked cars along the side, especially where there may be streets crossing the street that you're on, are times when you want to be especially vigilant, and it's also very wise to keep your finger over the horn button in these cases. Approach carefully, make sure you check to see if anybody's coming, and just assume that people aren't expecting anybody to cross in front of them. While a flag could be an option on your Velomobile in this situation, I actually find in my own experience that defensive riding and bright lights are going to be more effective than a flag. It's easy to look at cars, especially these giant SUVs, and feel like it's the only safe way to get from point A to point B. The biggest complaint I always hear about Velomobiles is that they're too low to the ground, but when you think about it, so are squirrels, turkey, geese, small children, potholes, tree limbs, and a whole lot of other things that most drivers are not running into. I've been hit more times in my car now than I have in my Velomobile, and I've actually been injured worse in the car each time. A motor vehicle does not guarantee that you will be safe. 3 of those accidents involved me being rear-ended, which in theory should be when I'm at my most visible in a car. Even school buses get hit, which theoretically is about as visible as you're going to get. That tells me the problem is not so much the vehicle we're driving or riding in, but the growing number of distracted drivers. Taking reasonable precautions no matter what you're driving, like the combination of routing on lower traffic streets, running bright lights, driving defensively, can all make a Velomobile just as safe as a car or truck. Throw in the intentionally designed safety features of the newer models like the Bulk, and I think you're going to get about as safe a bicycle as you can get. Vehicles in the US seem to get bigger and less gas efficient. In fact, I think we're on pace to soon all be driving tanks on the road. Not only are these vehicles creating more traffic congestion, but it's also leading to increased wear and tear on our already crumbling infrastructure, not to mention the escalating cost to own and operate these huge vehicles. The more people that turn to cycling for transportation or even just walking for shorter trips, the more I think we can ease the impact of heavy traffic volumes. I've talked in prior videos about the health benefits I've found from cycling, and I think that's an important point to bring up here. Fresh air, sunshine, exercise, even if it's a bike with e-assist, are all proven to improve your health mentally and physically, and the US is not the only country dealing with an increase in problems in this area. Cycling can be a big positive influence in our health, and this has been the biggest change for me since going car-free. I really don't want to drive places in my car anymore. I like the quiet side streets. I like feeling part of the environment as I ride. I like the high I get from a good bike ride. I enjoy the social interactions I have from riding such a weird bike. And I don't want to be just another angry, impatient motorist on the road. I like not paying the high price of gas. A car is never going to get me any of those things. Now, on the face of it, cycling might seem incredibly dangerous, and I've been there. I've dealt with the intimidating feeling of trying to navigate through an area designed entirely with cars in mind, without getting killed. It took me some time to make the adjustment in my routing and how I approach riding in traffic, but over time my confidence is built, and I found it's not actually as scary as it seems. Don't hesitate to talk to your fellow cyclists and ask them about what it is they do to feel safer riding in traffic. We're here to help, and a lot of us are really passionate about seeing others discover the joys we've found from cycling. Of course, as always, if you're interested in taking the plunge into the wonderful world of Velomobiles, send me a message at sales.usa@velomobileworld.com, and I'd be happy to help you discover more about this great form of transportation. As always, thanks for watching. Remember to like and subscribe, and I'll see you in the next video.